Thank you, Renee. You've just done an excellent job of getting the emotional impact of what healthcare reform is all about. It's not just Senate bill this or Senate bill that. It has an impact, and we have to find a way to blend healthcare to help take care of your family, to make certain that kids are getting immunizations, that we're preventing illness, and I think you really brought a great focus to that. I'm going to bring on another guest, and I'm going to do something rare and give up the seat as moderator. We're going to be joined by Dr. Jim Hornstein. Jim is a family practitioner here in town who, in his years of practice, really felt the need to get extra ethical training, because that's a big piece of not just pieces of paper, but how they impact people and society. So, Ventura, get moving. I'm moving out of this seat and making some room.
Hi, Renee. Welcome back to the show. Before I ask you our first question, I'd like to say what a pleasure it is to sit in such an esteemed chair of Dr. Landon and have this opportunity to continue what I think is really a great community service that he does for all of us in providing us an opportunity to share with the community important issues in healthcare. So to Dr. Landon, thank you for giving up the seat and allowing me to fill in with big shoes that I can barely fit into. Renee, tell me a little bit about your boys and your family.
Peter and Robert are 25 and 23, and they're very involved in the news and politics and video games and gardening, as what we mentioned on the other show. And they're incredible human beings that I really enjoy coming home from teaching school and visiting with them, and they fill me in on everything that's happening all over the world. And lately, they've hooked us into watching Lost. So after school, almost every day, after watching an episode of Lost, they've hooked it up to Hulu. And so they have this episode of Lost that we watch together.
Sound like characters. What I heard from you on your last show was a tremendous amount of effort and love and concern on your part in getting them the care that they needed over a long period of time. Has that been something that has been burdensome for you?
It has been my pleasure, and it's been in my heart to do that. There have been times when it's been extremely challenging and you think you're not going to make it through to the next week, but you do. And so one moment can be terrifying and scary and seem impossible, and then if you just take one day at a time, the burden's lighter. And the burden's lighter when a community is sharing that burden, like the situation that I have right now.
Mm-hmm. What would you consider to be your long-term goals for your boys?
My long-term goals for the boys right now are that they're happy and living one day at a time, pursuing interests that they're interested in.
Mm-hmm. And as far as their healthcare needs, what can we do in healthcare to allow you to get to those goals?
I think that we've gone through multiple steps already to come to that point. The last 3 years have been very stable. Up into that point, we had to go through some very difficult transitions, where I think the form they're talking about could have been a positive or a negative situation. There's been times when the first biggest, scariest time was when they had a spine fusion. And I remember Peter, after the spine fusion, he knew what forced vital capacity he had to get off the ventilator. And so when they came in and tested him, he wrote it on this little whiteboard. I could hardly read it because he was medicated, but he wrote, 1,200 on there or something like that. And so he was able to get off in the ventilator after that spine fusion. So there's been multiple scary spots where we've had to go through a lot of decision making. When Robert was at UCLA, he had aspiration pneumonia 11 times. And they did not want me to feed him anymore. He was having aspiration due to a G tube, an NG tube. And every time the physical therapist came in to lay him flat, he would get aspiration pneumonia. It took the whole team, it took all of us a while to figure out what was going on. But they didn't want him to eat, so they kind of pushed for the G-tube then. But as a family, we were not ready for the G-tube, and were worried about an additional surgery. So at that point, we declined. But later, we got the G-tube. And that was, people think that artificial feeding is a big intervention and big and scary. It's not. It's so simple. And the transition to that, I thought would be awful, because I thought, well, they love cooking shows, and they still watch cooking shows to today. I thought, they're going to hate that, not participating in food, and so much of our society's on food. But actually, it's turned out to be not just life-saving for them, because they gained 50 pounds on that, but also a big freedom for them, because they have this little pack, and you hang it on the back of their wheelchair, and you pour the can in, and they go. So it's actually more simple, and probably I would say even more cost-effective than having somebody sit for 2 hours and try to feed them and have them go through choking and stuff. So we've gone through lots of transitions. Right now, we're stable, and we don't really have another big transition, because we have all of these interventions in place already. But we've had lots of conversations with doctors. But not every doctor is prepared for the patient that runs across their path if they don't know them.
Well, I can tell you, just hearing your story today, just as one doctor, one person to the other, what a remarkable job you've done to support your boys. And it sounds like they've gotten remarkable care, both from their physicians and from all of the ancillary services, but most importantly from you, and the love, I'm sure, is there, and you just need to be praised for that. And I hope the audience certainly sees what a devoted and loving mother you are for them.
I think there's a lot of gifts when you're around someone that's ill or disabled. They're kind of unexpected gifts, and I would hate for any kind of plan to take away the opportunity to have those unexpected gifts, because something might sound too scary when it might not be.
Now, you've mentioned that both just this moment and before, you're afraid something will take what you have away. And I want to explore that, because right now the nation is struggling with what to do with our current healthcare system. Many people describe it as a dysfunctional system, one which provides very good care for some people and virtually no care for almost a sixth of our population, 50 million. Some people at risk of losing their insurance, some people at risk of being unable to afford it. Quality of care is marginal in certain areas, and costs of care are high for everyone. So we have all of these problems and all of these potential solutions going around. But as a mom caring as you do so well for your kids, could you tell me, if you can, what makes you nervous? What do you hear about healthcare reform in your ears that your antennas go up and you say, oh no, I've got to fight that?
Well, to be honest with you, and probably not to be politically correct, there is a science advisor for President Obama, and I don't know his full name, but Emmanuel's part of his name. And some of his writings are indicating types of decisions regarding rationing and the value of human life, and how much money should be spent on a person based on their age or their disability. And Peter could tell you his name, but and this person is not a medical doctor. I'm sure he's got a PhD in something, but I don't think it's medicine. And even if he was a doctor, unless you have personally walked through these paths and seen the value of a human being outside of disability, outside of their ability, outside of their economic potential, outside of their then you should not be making public policy about those things.